Did you get a glass for me, or should I get my own?
All right, welcome. I think I'm live. I am live. This never gets old. It's always new every time. Facebook has made so many changes in their live tastings that
Live.
their live, yeah, my live tastings, their live feed, that I just got something new today, something about doing a preview before I
Ooh,
go, which I have no idea what that means.
you're at the top of my thing.
Oh, I'm at the top of Keith's list. That's fantastic. That means I did change something.
There's two of us.
So, hello, Lisa and Greer and Keith.
Ooh,
Nice to see you all. Oh, it seems like it might even be a little faster. All right. Welcome, Lori. I can't wait to hear about your wine and all of yours, of course. Let's grab a glass. Join us.
Tell Lisa the beer was good.
All right. Hi, Liz. Nice to see you. All right. We're thinking of our drinking game for this evening. So this is going to be an interesting night, and I'll tell you why. First, we're drinking Zinfandel, okay? So the alcohol content is high. Hi, Leslie. And hi, Anne. And hi, Christine. The alcohol content on this wine is high. Some of us may even be halfway into the bottle. Lisa Gilbert heard you. And he said, thank you for the beer. He enjoyed it. I just wasn't sure, really what to do with it. Hi, Mike. Nice to see you. And so anyway, we're talking about what an interesting night this is going to be, tasting Zinfandel. And the interesting thing is lots of folks asked me, hi, Christine, asked me, hey, can you do a Zinfandel tasting? And my response, believe it or not, was, well, let's talk about why. Hi, Marla. The reason that I was a little hesitant to do Zinfandel is that was kind of my entry-level wine with Keith. And that part of that was it was high alcohol, it was big-bodied, jammy, fruity, and it was easy to drink. Do you remember we used to drink? We used to drink the White Horse from Sonoma.
And
Blackstone?
no, the seven deadly zins or
No, not me. Maybe you. Yep. Seven Deadly Sins is great. But again, big. So Lori asked, why is the alcohol content? Oh, hello, Mary. Why is the alcohol content so high in Zinfandel? Lori, that's a great question. So when we're talking about Zinfandel, it's a high sugar grape. Sugar, as we know, in the fermentation process converts to alcohol, and that's why it's so high. All right, and we're going to get into all of that. Hello, and yes, Marla, I do have pants. Thank you. Hi, Tracy. She's already on her way. Bottle number 1. Yeah. So that's fantastic. All right, everyone, buckle up. It's 7:05. I have a little introduction, and then we're going to get started. Feel free, as always, to drink along with us. Keith is confirming I'm wearing pants. All right. So I'm Alison Miller. Those of you who I can see on here know that already. There are some folks that their names don't necessarily come up and they're watching along, and people who watch afterwards. And so I just want to make sure that you know that I'm the owner of Artisan Wine Group, and we do educational tastings and fun virtual tastings and host, I kind of call it the, during the social distancing, I call it, we do a party starter where for 30 minutes we do a tasting and then leave you with your friends to party the rest of the night away in the virtual room. So it's kind of a fun thing to do. I also just released a Facebook Live tasting pack, which is 6 bottles of wine that will cover the next 4 weeks of Facebook Live tastings. So those of you who purchase will be able to taste along with us the same one. And those of you who are still love to join us and didn't feel like buying a pack, that's totally fine. You taste your own right along with us. It will stay very consistent in how we've been doing it. And Tracy wants to know, is there a drinking word tonight? I was going to do Zin because I shorten Zinfandel often. Hi, Andrew. Welcome. Why, Keith? I don't know. Tracy wants to know. What do you think? Should we make it Zin? Does Heath have an idea, Tracy? Let's go with Zin. All right. Every time I call it Zin, since it's Zinfandel, every time I call it Zin, we're going to cheers. Cheers, everybody. Hi, Jess. Thank you. I'm excited for you guys to try it as well. Oh, Leslie, you got your wine pack yesterday. That is so funny. And the rest of you just got hers as well, and some of you will be getting it in the next few days. So Liz is sharing with the tasting pack. I'm not sure what that means, but if you have a question there and I need to respond to it, just let me know. Okay. And then the other thing that I haven't really talked much about, but you see this often as I am going through taste qualities. Those of you who want to learn more about wine, as we go along, I created this Vino card pack, and it's a game playing pack. You can play solitaire. So you flip on your own as you're tasting and you look for things that match what you're tasting. You can play War, you can play 21. What was the new one we came up with? Do you remember? There are lots of ways to play, and I'm going to start doing them virtually. I'm going to start having virtual game nights so we can play with these as well while we drink our wine. Okay, Amy and Carrie, hi, welcome. And Carrie, nice picture taking last weekend. They did a virtual prom. It was beautiful. And Zin it is. Cheers. And hi, Diney, welcome. Grab a glass, have a sip. All right, so that's kind of my intro. And I just want to remind you guys that when people pop on, if they haven't liked Artisan Wine Group specifically or followed it, or they aren't a friend of mine for some reason, there's a glitch.
Who wouldn't be a friend of yours?
Who isn't a friend of mine? I might sing, "You got a friend in me." It's the Zinfandel talking. I don't know. All right. So sometimes your comments might not come up at first, but if someone sees somebody they know and they don't see their comments or aren't sure if I do because I don't respond, feel free to repeat them or welcome the person. It seems like if you welcome your friends in the comment box, then I can see their comments, but not always. Okay. So, and as always, I am your wine consultant from now on, if you need one. And so what that means is I'm just thank you all joining and watching. And if I don't answer one of your questions, feel free to message me separately. All right, Liz says she ordered a tasting pack and she's eagerly awaiting the arrival, wondering if we will all get the same wines or we will get the same varietals, but different wines. That's a great question. We'll get varietals that I handpicked that will go with the tasting. So next week we're doing Italian reds. So I picked a beautiful Super Tuscan and a wonderful Barbera d'Alba, and that's what we're tasting next week. So those of you who didn't get the tasting pack, if you can get a Barbera or a Super Tuscan to taste with us, that would be great as well. All right. So let's see. Tonight's topic, Zinfandel, shortened often to Zin. Zin is the drinking game word of the night. Cheers to everybody. Cheers, Keith. All right. While we're drinking, you may want to start paying attention to the food that you're eating. It's such a big wine that you can drink it on your own, or you can eat with barbecue. It's fantastic. And I happen to have a shout out to Gabby's locally in Londonderry. They make the best brisket, smoked brisket. And so Keith, thank you for
around here. Apparently.
Around here. Actually, there's some really good smoked barbecue, but we ordered some tonight and it was phenomenal. It was just fantastic. So, all right. So what do you need? You should have a glass. You should have your bottle open. Cheers to everybody as we move forward. Okay. And we're going to do a cheers, and we're actually drinking the wine. So what is that crackpot in front of you who just sang talking about? Why are we drinking wine? Why would I say that? Because when you cheers, you're not really tasting. You're just kind of drinking. You drink it down. Just like when you're eating, something that you're just not paying attention to. Like I had eggs today and I just kind of ate them. So that's what we did for cheers with drinking. And now we're going to taste. Now we're going to pay attention to what we're drinking. Greer says she made a barbecue chicken dip. Yep, that little bit of spice with the barbecue sauce. Greer, you made that, but how did it go together? Marla says one word we agree on is spicy. Our Zin is spicy. Now, if you notice Marla's comment, as she's been learning week to week, it's so interesting. So she didn't just say spicy, because there's a difference. Spicy can be baking spices like cloves and nutmeg, or spices can be pepper. And as the more you play with this, the better you get at identifying different taste qualities. You can start to pick out, I can now, black pepper versus white pepper. Say that 6 times fast, black pepper, white pepper. Lisa Gilbert, I hear you saying that. Black pepper, white pepper. All right. So grape varietal, Zinfandel is a grape varietal. It has a great history of mystery. Those of you who are into mysteries about the history of wine. And so Zinfandel has a really good background, and we're going to cover that. Greer says, I think Andy's jealous of Marla's comment, but Greer is saying the barbecue sauce is great with it, and it brings out the pepper taste of the wine. Yes, absolutely. Oh, hi, Sally. Old Vine red wine. Okay. I don't know, Sally. While I'm talking, if you have a chance, just Google Old Vine red wine 2015, and it'll tell you it's a red blend. So it'll tell you what varietals are in it. It could be a Zinfandel red blend, but I can't tell just from the information you're giving me. Yes, Andy, I love teachers' pets. No, yeah, Lisa. All right, sorry, laughing at Lisa's comment that I heard her. All right, anyway, so going back to Zinfandel, it's been found to be, so the questions that I get a lot are, what is Zinfandel? What's white Zinfandel? What's the difference? And what is Primitivo, right? Because I threw that in there when I did the posting, Primitivo. So Zinfandel and Primitivo, they've found to be genetically identical. They're the same thing. It's just that they're grown in different areas. So Primitivo is Italy, and Zinfandel is California. Hi, Janet. Welcome. Grab a glass. And Leslie has a white Zinfandel, so it's very light. Yes, absolutely. And we're going to talk about that difference. They're so different, even though they're made from the same grape. All right. So the Primitivo and the California Zinfandel are both clones. And this is the funny thing about history and the grapes and all this stuff. This is what I geek out about, right? The soil and all that stuff. It wasn't until 2000. 2001, 2002, even up to 2008, that they figured out where Zinfandel came from. It used to be believed that the United States' true fine wine grape was Zinfandel. And then they discovered that a very similar wine was made in Croatia and Italy. And Primitivo is in Italy. And then they traced it back just at the beginning, 15 years ago. They traced it back to a Croatian grape that was really hard to find because they didn't really grow it that much anymore. And it was called Tribidrag, also known as, all right, you ready for my Croatian? This is my Croatian pronunciation. Sirjenak Kaštelanski. And that they dated back to the 1500s. Okay. But they actually found, they think it's even further than that because one article talked about having Primitivo in Italy in the 700s. But it came from Croatia first. So it's a little bit inconsistent on the information. All right. So the difference is that between Primitivo and Zinfandel is that the difference in taste has to do with the site that it's from. So, and its growing conditions, the soil, the weather, and the overall winemaking process. Okay. But then it gets confusing because in California, you can buy a Primitivo. So if you buy a Primitivo in the United States, that means that the vine came from Europe. If it's Zinfandel, then it's been here for a long time. And they do grow a little differently. The Primitivo is a little bit less grape production on the vine than the Zinfandel, even though it's the same varietal. So we can get into that. That's totally geeky stuff, and we could talk about why. But I think I'll move on. And if you really want to know, we can circle around. All right. And so Zinfandel ripens with high sugar levels and a high alcohol content. So it gives the wine a smoother, sweet style. And Primitivo ripens under the hot Italian sun, creates a heartier, less fruity, and less sweet style. Now, white Zinfandel. Does anybody else besides Leslie have a white Zin? Cheers, Zin. Janet, is this reminding you of high school? We played a lot of drinking games in high school. All right.
Zinfandel caps.
Zinfandel caps, that would be pretty gross and sticky. Yeah. All right. So white Zinfandel is made from the same grape. They take the white juice, and someone asked this a couple weeks ago. They said, we talked about rosé, and we're going to do another day on rosé. Hi, Melissa. Welcome. Never late. Just great to see you. And so for some white wines, they will take the red grape and press it and get the clear juice and then make a wine from it. And so actually that's what white Zinfandel is. It got a bad name in the 70s and 80s because it it was mass produced, and it wasn't elegant, and it was very, very sweet. Hi, Brenda. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Grab a glass, jump in. We're playing a drinking game. Melissa, this is for you too. Whenever we say Zin, whenever I say Zin, we cheers. All right. So, white Zinfandel isn't included in delicate wines. It's not included in when we talk about Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc and those noble grapes. It's not included. Zinfandel is, well, California says it is, but white Zinfandel is not. And again, that's because it had been known for inexpensive wine, as Melissa is saying. So recently in California, they actually have made an effort to make it a little bit more vibrant. And so it's actually a really, really good wine. So first of all, it saved the California wine region, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Andy said, who's giving wine a bad name? You give wine a bad name. It's Zinfandel. I'm singing again. It's as if we're having tequila. All right. So white Zinfandel is 9 to 10% alcohol, low calories, only 125 calories per 6-ounce serving, and it has a pleasing sweet taste. White Zinfandel accounts for 85% of total Zinfandel production. It's a great wine for a beginner because it's a great sipping around the pool wine. Leslie says, I was told it was originally a mistake that caught on. It was. Cheers to you, Leslie. That is awesome. I wish I had prizes. If we were in person, I would hand you a prize or a raffle ticket for that. In 1972, Bob Trinchero of Sutter Home decided to drain some juice from his Zin. So he was making Zinfandel, drink, Bon Jovi. So he was making Zinfandel, red Zinfandel, big red Zinfandel. And it got stuck. It was in what you call a stuck fermentation, where there's enough sugar and there's enough yeast, but it's not, the yeast is dying off before all the sugar is converted to alcohol. So to fix it, he drained it to allow more contact with the juice that was in the barrel, to have tannins and more color. Hi, welcome. And so he drained it and he put the juice aside. He just set it aside for 2 weeks. And then he tasted it, and it was pink and it was sugary. So he thought, well, maybe I'll sell it. He made 220 cases. That's what he had. And he sold it, and it took off. At that time, white wine was really, really hard to come by. It exceeded it exceeded the availability of red. And so California, when they were struggling, white Zinfandel actually brought them up. So Marla says, is it a type of rosé? Yeah, I guess it is, right? Because it's from red grapes, and it's the white juice that's pulled off of it. Yes, absolutely. But it is sweet. So you have to kind of keep that in mind when you're looking for it. And it's not great for, it's like a porch drinking wine, pool wine. It's not great with food, but it's lovely on its own chilled, but it is sweet. Okay. So it basically saved, this is another interesting thing when I say it saved California, it saved the old vines. And we're going to talk a little bit later about what that means to have an old vine Zinfandel. But it saved the old vines because they kept them to make this white Zinfandel. So even when so there was a huge dip in Zinfandel demand in the U.S. And so it made a comeback. Red Zinfandel made a comeback in 2000, and then the better wines are come off those old vines, and so thankfully they were preserved. All right, and just so you know, Zinfandel makes wines that range from late harvest dessert wines, rosés like white Zinfandel, but also Beaujolais, so a light Beaujolais style that you chill and serve chilled. And then it also makes big hearty reds and fortified wine. I forgot to pull that, but I have this amazing port from Washington State, and it's Zinfandel port. And I've served it at wine tastings, and people are blown away that it's a port and it's a Zinfandel port. Hi, Charlie. Nice to see you. All right. So we haven't even gotten to the tasting part yet. I have a lot on Zin. The allure of red Zinfandel, it's bolder than delicate Pinot Noir and more approachable and more tannic than Cabernet Sauvignon. And it's a great food wine. When California Zin is really good, it's world class. There's a strong balance of acid, tannin, and it creates the backbone and the structure for the wine like a fine Barolo. Barolo depends on a strong backbone of acid and tannin. And you can have a lot of primary fruits in it and very high alcohol, but it's all balanced. And that's not normal. Usually if you have high alcohol, it's out of balance, or you have high acid, it's out of balance. It's balanced. Zinfandel is balanced, and it can age for 30 to 40 years. So not that I ever have wines that age for 30 to 40 years, but Les does. So Zinfandel is a good ager. Okay. And as it ages, it develops complexity and elegance. Serve it at 62 degrees. All right. So Sally loves old vine zins. Absolutely good call, Sally. And I'm going to talk about that after, because there's a way to know if you're really buying an old vine zin. They can say whatever they want on the label. Yeah, Melissa, port is wonderful. Yeah. All right. So Sally's wine. This is really interesting. It's in your comments for those of you who are playing along. I've never heard of Valdigue. Carignan, I know. Petit Syrah, normal. Dolcetto, yep, is an Italian grape, and Negro Amaro, and Mourvèdre, and served chilled. I bet that is in the Beaujolais style. That's very interesting. Sally, let us know if you chilled it ahead of time and how it tastes. I'd be really interested. More approachable. Great question, Brenda. Brenda asked, what does more approachable mean? And I think, let me see, where did I say it? So I know what it means, but I want to make sure I put it in the, okay. So a wine that's inapproachable is like a highly tannic wine. So I referred to tannic Cabernet Sauvignon. So sometimes when Cab is young and you drink it, it's like a feeling. It's a feeling in your gums, and it kind of takes you back, and you might, you don't physically suck in, but it feels like that. And so it's a difficult drinking wine. High acid could be difficult drinking. It just doesn't taste good unless you have the right cheese or the right food with it. That's not approachable. Approachable means that it's balanced, but when you drink it, it tastes good. That's approachable. Easily good. Like you don't have to work for it, if that makes sense. Okay. Great question. All right. So Zin, those Zin lovers, cheers. Again, those of you just joining in, that is our drinking game. If I say Zin, we take a sip. All right. Beginning. So we serve at 62 degrees, and we go over this each week. So I go over it quickly, but you are welcome to ask any questions. When you taste wine, you always see, swirl, smell, and sip. That's actually why when you go to a wine tasting, you're not supposed to wear lipstick. That's because when you look at the glass, you want to be able to keep he's fortunate he didn't put his lipstick on tonight. But you want to be able to see what's in the glass and the quality, okay? And if you can, you hold up a white piece of paper or a white plate, whatever it is, so that you can see through the wine, okay? So take a wine, cheers, take a look at your wine, and tell me what color you see. Okay, this is mine. You can't see it. All right, what do you see there? All right, what I see is it's inky. You can't see through it. This is a deep, dark Zinfandel, very jammy. It's 15% alcohol at least. I wouldn't be surprised if they lowered the percentage of alcohol, which they can do. It's really warm, so I can taste the alcohol on it. But the color is a deep, deep red ruby. Okay, Marla's blood red and Andy's is inky. All right, and so we're gonna have some variety of red. This is not, all right, we're gonna have some variety of red in what you're going to see. All right, dark red ruby. Yes, Lori, I bet it is. Yeah, and this is so dark, very, very. I feel you, Liz. I feel like there's a lot of emotion. Anne's is deep purple. Yep. Magenta. Dine's is magenta. Diney, I'm curious if yours is a suggested serve cold as well. So the lighter the color, probably the sooner that they harvested the grapes as well. Greer sees a burgundy color. Melissa sees deep. Amy sees purple. Not see-through, right? So Brenda says deep, not see-through. So we would call that inky dark. And Leslie sees pink since hers is white. That's right. Jess Weller sees a ruby. Yep. Liz is crying because it's so dark. It's so deep dark. Yes. Absolutely. All right. So why do we look at it? We look at it to make sure there's no fault. In mine, it's so inky, I wouldn't know if there was a fault. But what it does tell me is that it's a big wine. And then you're going to look for the legs. And that tells you, again, the mouthfeel, the viscosity of your wine. Okay, so that's seeing it. Then we swirl it. All right, and as you see, I'm using a huge glass. And that's so that the oxygen reaches it, although Zinfandel is highly aromatic, meaning there's a lot of aromas. And so, you know, but so Sally's cool. Oh, yep. But that should be fine out of your wine cellar. Yep. Deep burgundy. And Bill says it's almost purple, very deep reddish purple. Yep. And Diney, actually, I can see magenta on the edge as well. Okay. All right. So, hi, Nance. All right. Grab a glass, kid. Have a drink. All right. So, again, the legs, you still can't, you can kind of see them on mine. They're going to slowly move down your glass because Zinfandel is so high in alcohol and it has sugar, a significant amount of sugar. So it's going to slowly move down your glass. Again, it's going to tell you that is going to be big in your mouth. Okay. Get your minds out of the gutter. Oh. All right. Sorry, my computer just went to giant words. It's off now. All right. Oh, interesting. So Christine points out that her wine matches the curtains behind it. Yeah, the color. All right. So let's swirl it now. Swirl it. It's highly aromatic. What do you smell? Okay. Oh, Liz is drinking. So yes, I bet they were sold out. Saldo is amazing. Zinfandel from California is one of my favorites. All right. Okay, what do you smell? The first thing you're going to identify is the fruit. Okay. Now, we're going to cover, even though I have a lot of information, I'm going to cover for you because I want to go back. I feel like we've been tasting quickly the last couple of weeks, and I want to be sure that we call out taste qualities and how we experience them. Okay. All right. So alcohol and raspberries. Yeah, that's right, Lisa. It's got leather. Interesting. And Diney has raspberry. Yeah. Okay, and Amy Greenbaum, buttered popcorn. That's interesting. And Jess has the smell. Oh, the smell of alcohol is overpowering. All right, Jess, so yours, I want to say, first of all, make sure it's not too cold. And second of all, swirl a bunch because the alcohol should relax a little bit on a Zinfandel. It should be in balance. Okay, so Sally said if we were going to get the wine, does it specify on the site which one goes with your weekly tastings? So I will say it says it in the order. And then I've posted it several times on the Artisan Wine Group Facebook site. And then you can always reach out to me too. And just so you know, next week is the Italian week. So Andy has supplemental, so he passed the aromas. But yes, Andy, you get a star.
Is he drinking wine?
Tracy, currant, whetstone, and pepper. All right, so we know Tracy's is a little bit more, it's a little drier. It's a little bit more, could be from a little bit cooler region because she's getting notes of currant, whetstone, and pepper. Liz gets whetstone, if she gets dark cherry, and Christine gets chocolate, okay, and that's going to be from oaking it. And Lori Bailey gets peppers, okay, that's interesting. Diney gets the whetstone. Greer has clinker brick, 2015. And Marley gets black cherry and olive. Okay, I'm just catching up on comments. Melissa just had delivered a Raffinelli's in from Sonoma. Oh, free bottle. They have it in stock. They must know you're doing a Zen tasting. Yes. And Lisa gets dark cherry. Okay, so instead of looking at all of your comments, because they're all going to be correct as we know, and Anne's now getting dark cherry. So one of the things that you can do is just take a card like this one, the strawberry, and think about, all right, what does a strawberry taste like? What does a ripe strawberry taste like? All right, it has a certain flavor to it. What might that smell like? And then you can go to your wine and see if you get it. I forgot we were still smelling and not drinking. And for those of you who aren't getting much smell, you can always cover it and then release. Okay, dark cherry is going to be one because there's so much bright fruit in it. Okay, Andy is saying it tastes like a dry bird. I can't tell you what that. Okay, Lori's is a little bit vegetal. Lori, I'm going to touch on that later because yeah, because that has to do with the region it's from. I've never had A. raffinale, but Tracy says it's fantastic. All right, and Anne's having 1,000 stories. All right, Anne, remind me to go back to that because that's barrel aged, and I'm going to talk about that. And Scott says pepper and blackberry. All right, good, good. All right, and Andy's is very beaky. I'm going with Andy's being beaky like Dine's, or no, was it Dine's? Someone had a lot of pepper on it. Okay, and Lisa said it smells like it's going to be a big, bold flavor. So very, very fruity. You could call out on Zinfandel, you could call out red cherry, you could call out blackberry, you could call out strawberries, blueberries. It's so rich and concentrated, but it still should have structure. All right, so robust berry fruit flavors, cherry, blackberry, and then you can also have anise, black pepper, jam. Okay, jammy, people have asked me this before, what does jammy mean? Jammy means that it's big, almost stewed, but not quite stewed fruit. Big, I would call it ripe fruit. Okay, so that's the jammy card. That one would definitely go with the one that I'm having. Okay. And so then after you cover and swirl it, Marla got the oak barrels and the earth. Okay, and Anne is definitely going to get, because hers is bourbon aged, bourbon barrel aged, the 1,000 stories. So she's going to get a little bit of that spice as well from the bourbon barrels. All right, so we're going to go ahead and taste it, which we've already done. We know we've already done. But what are you getting in your taste? So as we taste, we do 2 tastes. First one can be overwhelming to your taste buds when you're first tasting. So you do a second, and then you think about it and you pay attention to what is on your palate and how long does it stay there. Okay, so I get big fruit. I get, and if I had to think about it, I get blueberry, I get black cherry, I get black plum, okay? And then about 2 seconds later, I get this weird sensation. And it's something else, it's not fruit, it's black pepper. I can tell because I've tasted black pepper in wine, and I can tell because there's a certain quality to it that I've gotten used to.
Black pepper.
So I taste the black pepper, and then after that, I'm getting some smoky elements slowly. So it takes a little bit. It doesn't come right away because the fruit is so big. Then there's acid there, definitely, and there's definitely tannins there, okay? And that's what I'm identifying when I'm tasting. What is all in that? Why do we do that? Because there's a lot to wine and how it's made, but also for food pairing, and what we want to eat with it when we want. Okay. Greer says it smells like my nail salon. That's a great question, Greer. It is possible because they're reopening salon. No, I'm just kidding. It's possible because as you keep smelling, your olfactory senses, your senses that have to do with smell, get overwhelmed. And so you have to go away, taste something else. Some people do coffee grounds. That doesn't help me. And then you go back. Okay. So, and Lisa is tasting the same thing I am, which is an Ancient Peaks Zinfandel from Paso Robles. And so it's definitely jammy. And so she's tasting similar to me. So Sally says she doesn't think Zinfandel to be dry, but this blend is very dry. Sally, the higher end wine, the higher end Zinfandels, they will be drier. Okay. I'm going to catch up on comments. I'm going to open my Primitivo. Andy says the sense of smell is the most nostalgic of senses.
Wow.
That is correct.
Colorado has legal marijuana.
Keith points out that Colorado has legal marijuana. But so that was kind of the point of the game I made to pick out senses, because I try to describe it and use all of your senses, your memories, your visual sense, your sense of smell, all of that, and your nostalgia in tasting wine.
Lack of a sense of humor.
Yes. All right. Lisa says very smooth. Marla, chocolate, roses, berries, blackberry. Yeah, and the chocolate, I can't say it enough. The chocolate is coming from the oak, likely. The roses could be, if they plant roses in the soil where your vines are grown, you're gonna get roses. The berries and black pepper, that's part of the Zinfandel grape. Keith asked how you taste roses, and I just can't. That would take me a while. I can explain it, but it would take a little bit. Best thing to do, take a rose, grind it up, put it into your wine glass, smell it with wine. Jess gets blueberry and smoke. Yep, and the smoke is from the oak. And Christine notices the kick at the end. And this is, again, why people love sipping Zinfandel. Fruit at the front, the spicy kick at the end. It's a little bit more, there's a little bit more to it. All right, so Melissa says, Jan, very dry. Sally found that it's good with brownies. That's really, okay, so first of all, everything is better with brownies, but it's interesting that your brownie didn't interfere in your taste, because that can happen as well. And I'm skipping Andy's comment. Anne says, quite a bit of tannin, leather, and pepper, but not as much fruit. So that sounds like a nice, balanced wine. So Greer asks, love the card game. How can we get your game? I'll post it online, but it is on my website at artisanwinetasting.com. And it's also on my other site, which is thatpartyinabox.com. So I'll post those after. Melissa, and thank you for asking. Melissa says she's having it with a brownie too. So that's pretty interesting that the brownies go with it. All right. Now I just popped open, I'm drinking a Paso Robles Zin, which is central to California and warm, but it's cooled by the ocean. This one is a Primitivo. And Primitivos are from Puglia in Italy. So this one should be a little bit more earthy and spicy. It's big, it's still big. You can see it's still inky, but it has like a butter finish to it. So interesting. It's just different. It's a little bit, it's got tobacco. Definitely tobacco. That's beautiful. All right. So that's this one. Keith wants to try that one. All right. So you guys are getting into food. Let me jump to that. Okay. Sorry, I know, gross germs. All right. Food pairing. I put that up on the site, but it goes really, really, really well. So curry, spice, and barbecue are the best pairings for Zinfandel in general. So I'm having barbecue tonight from Gabby's, as I mentioned, and it's fantastic. And then one of the things I was going to try to do is they give these little barbecue sauces, and they have different kinds, and I was going to taste those with my wine. So while you guys work the tasting, I'm going to share with you. Anne says she has layer cake Primitivo. All right, so that is a California Primitivo, and I'm sure that it's lush. That would be my guess. Okay. Oh, aged balsamic with Zin is very, very interesting. All right. As you guys comment with your food pairings, I'm gonna just share some information with you about Zinfandel. Okay. So it grows best in California. You see it most, and Italy in Puglia. Puglia is the heel of Italy. Okay. But it originated in Croatia. It grows best in warm climates, but not hot. And because they have thin skins and they shrivel under too much sun. A dry climate's best. The bunches are tightly packed, really tightly packed, and they can rot if there's too much moisture. But the grapes require lots of attention in the vineyard. So the Zinfandel wines, the vines are hardy, but the grapes themselves can easily damage. Okay. Anne asks, what does lush mean? That's like a full mouthfeel, a full, vibrant mouthfeel.
She's never met Chucky.
Okay. The fruit ripens very early, which is why they actually think that they brought the grapes over from Croatia to Italy, because they're early ripening versus others. But because the tightly, the bunches, they mature at different times. So you can have one bunch of Zinfandel and some can be ready to pick and others can be totally not ripe. And so they have to be, hi, Leslie. I haven't seen Leslie in a long time. Welcome. Grab a glass, kid. We're playing I have a drink, but have a cheer. All right. And so the grapes, because they grow unevenly, either the winemaker has to go in and hand pick off of the bunches and let them continue to mature and just pick the ones that are ready. And that's why Zinfandel, really good Zinfandels, can be very expensive. Otherwise, sometimes what they'll do is just pick all the grapes and just a lot of manual work. Because it's more manual work. That's right. Yeah. Good question, Keith. And then also there's the factor of old vines aren't planted for the machines that we use. So that lends itself to hand picking as well.
Meaning they're not in like rows and stuff? Or?
Yes, they're not. They're in rows where people can walk through. Okay. So they hand harvest, then they go back and pick out more grapes that harvested and more. Right. Nice recommendation, Melissa, to Mary. That's fantastic. California, perfect because there's warm, dry summers, cool nights, well-drained volcanic soil, and all the rain coming in the winter. So, and there are many vines over 100 years old. Sometimes they blend it with Petite Syrah, and they all grow together. When Sally mentioned her blend above, all those grapes grow together. So it doesn't surprise me that they would put them together. They're all similar growing areas. And so Petite Syrah will give it structure, color, and tannin. Okay. Now you're going to start to see it. Liz has returned. I don't know what happened to her, but I'm glad she's back. Now you may see it called ZPC. Okay, I don't want to throw you off, but Zinfandel, Primitivo, and the Croatian word that I could not pronounce starts with a C. So that's ZPC. It's all the same grape. It's all the same varietal. And there have been legal actions to get them to the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms to identify Zinfandel and Primitivo as synonyms, but they never went through for various reasons, and they dropped the lawsuit. This is over 20 years. So who knows? You may see ZPC in the future. Have you discussed Primitivo, the ancient ancestor of Zin? Yes, actually, we discussed where Primitivo comes from, which is I don't know if I should try to pronounce it. I'm going to just butcher it. But it's Crnjanak Castellanci. All right, and that's from Croatia. That's the same grape that then was morphed into Primitivo in Italy and then brought over to the U.S. and became Zinfandel. All right, if foods change the taste of wine, what's the prescription without food? So when wine tasters taste, that's a really good question. When wine tasters taste, they taste without food. In fact, if you, like when we did for my coursework, when I earned my WSET advanced certification, when we did our live tasting, we tasted, but we did not have food. And someone there had food, and it changed their perception of the food. So anytime, like when I taste with Boston sommeliers, there's no food. You just taste the wine. So the proper description is actually what is without the food. And then when you add the food in, you're just saying if it's a good match or not and how it augments the food or does. Right. Nice question, Frank. Thanks for participating. Right. Melissa says, hi, Frank. And you're welcome, Melissa. All right, so jumping into Primitivo is earlier ripening. Ripens even a little bit more earlier. Yeah, because of soil and climate. So there's only one region that is specific to Zinfandel in Italy, and that's Primitivo di Manduria. But it's grown all over Puglia, and again, Puglia is the heel of Italy. Okay, and it's a little tough. Zinfandel grows vigorously, and if it does, it's watered down. And so they have to make the vine struggle, and that's why the old vines do better. Okay, so we're talking about Zin. Let's cheers. All right, what is old wine or an old vine? All right, so what happens is Zinfandel does better on old vines because old vines are less vigorous and produce less grapes, and so they're more concentrated. And so after you plant a vine, here's some information about vines. After you plant, it takes about 3 years for the grapevine to produce fruit. It reaches adulthood around 7 or 8 years. A mature grapevine is said to be anywhere from 12 to 25 years old. So there are certain regions, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, there are certain regions and certain varietals, you're just not going to find old vines, or they get rid of them. A lot of times they've been paid to pull them up. So it's hard to find old vines. But here's the problem. So old vines are usually more than 25 years old and preferably more than 50 years old. But this goes to Sally's label that says she's drinking old vine wine. There's no regulation on it. So I can make a 3-year-old bottle of wine and put old vine on it and no one would know, except you would because I just told you. Or I could take wine that had been on a vine for 8 years and combine it with maybe a tiny little bit of 100-year-old grapevine wine and I can put old vine on it. Okay. So how do you know? You know, but if you go to look at the website and certain reputable companies. So some of them, if they really are truly using old vines, they will tell you on their site they're meticulous because they want you to know that it really is an old vine. Other places just put it up, old vine. use vines from vineyards that are 100 years old or 80 years old, and they could have one. I mean, really one. Lisa asked, I moved and replanted. They can up to a certain age, and I don't know the age specifically, but the older they are, the further the roots grow down. And at that point, you're going to be sacrificing all the roots. There's no reason to pull it up.
Up to 3 meters, as we learned a couple
Up
weeks
to
ago.
3 meters. And then it's interesting, when I was in Bordeaux and Saint-Emilion, we were running in the vineyards every night, and they had tons of old vines. They probably looked 25 to 30 years old. They're beautiful, but they were just cut off. They're there, they've grown deep, they didn't get rid of them, but they just cut off the tops. So they were just dormant, okay? Let's see. No, Andy, so there's a lot you can do with old vines, by the way, but no, you could try to grow an old vine. I can't help you there. But you can make a table out of them, you can hang it on the wall. Isn't that what his greenhouse is for? That's what your greenhouse is for. All right, Greer is looking up the links, thanks. All right, Mar, I'm actually going to talk about your Kirkland Sonoma. It's because it's rated super high for $6.99. It's rated really, really high. So why old vines? They're desirable because they produce lower quantity fruit, which means more concentrated and flavorful grapes. It also produces decent quantities well past 100 years of age. The roots run deep, as I said before, so that means that the vines pull up all those nutrients and all those water sources from far, far below the surface. And so those of you who are drinking the Ancient Peaks wines, that's on an ancient, where their vineyard is on an ancient seabed. So those old vines have dug down all the way through those layers, but then they also get a maritime breeze, which brings in some salinity, some salt, and they get fog on the mountains around it. So it's pretty cool. All right, let me see, 748, and I'm going to go quickly through this, all right? So older vines don't suffer as much vintage variation, so they tend to be drought and flood tolerant and consistent in the wines that they make. They achieve ripeness more consistently, and you don't have to care for them quite as much as young vines, but they do have less production. So it's less money for grape growers, but also why the taste is amazing. And also a lot of times they get pulled up, old vines, it's hard to find. Fun fact, the oldest living grapevine is called Stara Trata. It grows in Morabar, Slovenia, and it's a rare red Slovenian variety called Zematovka, and it's at least been alive since the 17th century. All right, so we covered the history, but Gergich in California, those of you who know him, Mike Gergich, he founded a Zinfandel Institute to study the Zinfandel and figure out where use the genetics to figure out where it's from. And so they've done a lot of work through him and UC Davis to determine where it's from. Okay. All right. So where are the best regions? Where are the best regions? Best regions are in California. Right now, the most popular are Napa Valley, Dry Creek Valley in Sonoma. I know you have that. Russian River Valley in Sonoma. Amador County. I keep hearing more and more and more about Amador County. It's east of Paso Robles in California, and they're starting to come out with some key wines and have very specific characteristics from the Amador County. So keep in mind Lodi as well. So people might say, well, what about Central Coast? So Central Coast California, they produce more jug wines. They're warmer, so the Zinfandel is going to thrive and grow a lot of jammy fruit. So those will be more for jug wines. All right, exceptional growing regions for Zinfandel. Amador. So I didn't see anybody who had, but those are big-bodied Zinfandels. And as I run these off, say these different areas, I'm going to tell you the characteristics of that area. And if you can let us know if you're drinking that wine, tell us if it seems what you're drinking. Okay. So Amador, they're more jammy, briary, and brambly, sweet berries. Santa Cruz Mountains and Santa Clara Valley, that's where mine is from. And actually, it's Santa Margarita. But Zinfandels, there's only, in Santa Cruz Mountains, there's only 9 acres of Zinfandel, but they make unbelievable Zinfandel, complex and depth and a lot of depth. Sonoma County. Dry Creek AVA, as I said before, juicy Zinfandel, bright, balanced acidity, blackberry, anise, which some of you might be getting. I didn't get it. Okay. Jess's is Dry Creek. So I don't know if I went for too fast for you, Jess, but bright fruit, balanced acidity, blackberry, But then that maybe earthier feel on or taste on your tongue would be anise and pepper. I think Scott said that. I think you mentioned Scott had said that. Okay. San Luis Obispo, that's specifically Paso Robles, hot days, cool maritime evenings, and soft and round Zinfandel. She says Russian River Valley. Let's see. She says the currant and black cherry, peppery, earthy, wet stone. And what my research shows is that in the Russian River Valley, they produce well during warm vintages, so it's vintage specific. Otherwise, the grapes don't fully ripen. So then they have excessive acidity, but they have mostly old vine Zinfandel, Tracy. So Russian River has mostly old vine, and Sally, you would like Russian River the best probably. And they tend to be more spicy and somewhat lower in alcohol. So Lisa mentioned she really likes we're drinking the same, and again, this is Santa Margarita, and it's the southernmost region of Paso Robles, southernmost vineyard of Paso Robles, but it gets a cooling breeze. All right, Andes is Lodi, as is Greer's. So some of the oldest Zinfandel vines in California are found in Lodi as well. They brought them over from the east during the gold rush. And so they've kept those. And that's often in Lodi, they do a lot of white Zinfandel production, though the Reds has a reputation for being juicy and approachable. I don't know what OZV is, Andy, but I'm sure
I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
Or LBI.
And I'm not sure, Trace, how the 2015 vintage around the world was extraordinary. So I'm sure.
What's
okay.
LBI?
So I'm not sure. So Napa, so anybody with, let's see, St. Louis Obispo is more, we did that. Napa would be plummy and intense with red berry fruit, cedar, and vanilla. And Mendocino County would be less known. Probably, I don't think anybody has those. All right, Lori, Bailey, question for you is, I think you're drinking your Bailey's in. So they made this wine, Lori and Bill. And so do you know where the grapes came from? All right. So Italy, I covered already, but they've grown Primitivo since the 700s. And then Croatia, they're just getting Zinfandel, Primitivo, and the C, the originator, in about 2005, but they're starting to grow more. Now, can you find it anywhere else? You can find it in Mexico, Western Australia, Southern Australia, and South Africa. Okay. Vine. So old vine is 25 plus years. We did a whole thing on it, but if you have questions, let me know. But old vine in California can be 80, 100 years old.
Or Alison can scan it.
North Coast. All right, so North Coast. Then Anne's is the Mendocino County, and Anne's is interesting because they're high quality, the 1,000 stories, but they went with the idea to do barrel aging. From bourbon barrels instead of, because most Zinfandel is aged in either French or American oak. And so you're going to get a whole different smoky taste quality when they're barrel aged. Now, I've read articles that say that it's not true, but I've had the 1,000 stories and I can taste that rich, smoky, spicy, Long Beach Island, Andy says. All right. All right. So there are other places you can find it, the Languedoc in southern France. But the problem with the Languedoc is this. Actually, it's not a problem. If you find one from southern France in the Languedoc, what happened is 30 years ago, actually 40 or 50, it was overproduced, and they were dumping it and using wine to make fuel. And so the government said, hey, if you tear up your Zinfandel vines, we'll give you money. So they gave them money, and they pulled up all their vines, but very few winemakers did not do that, and those wines still exist. So if you can find an old vine Zin or from the Languedoc, that would be outstanding. Barossa we talked about. Oh, Santorini. Okay, so Santorini has Assortico, which is, it's just an old vine grape, but it's phenomenal. It's a very small supply. And I put it on here just because it's old vine. So that was just a good example of an older vine wine that's doing well. Okay. So we covered food pairing. So I'm going to go, I have two more things for you. Okay. One is how to buy. Okay. Have I said Zin? Zin twice. All right. So how to buy Zinfandel. Pay attention to the alcohol level. Lighter Zinfandel will have about 13 and a half, and a bold one could have anywhere up to 16. If they make them, oftentimes when they make them, they have like an 18% alcohol, and they have to cut that. They have to cut the alcohol.
How do they cut it?
They add into it. They might add other wine, or they might add different juice to it. High elevation, if you look for Zinfandels from high elevations like Howell Mountain in California or El Dorado County, those tend to be more savory intensity and richness, which means you get a different mouthfeel on it. If you think of food that is savory, it has a different experience to it. The pioneers of Zinfandel in California, Ravenswood, Rosenblum, and Ridge. Ridge is an interesting winery. They've brought over a whole bunch of similar varietals, and they haven't released them yet, but they're about to start pushing out these old varietals. They've had a little bit of difficulty with production, but they may end up being very, very interesting wines.
Ravenswood was another one.
Right. We started with Ravenswood too. So recommended ones, whiskey barrel aged, try that. That's an interesting one. Every comment page that I researched said Martinelli has, Jackass Vineyards and Jackass Hills are supposed to be unbelievable Zinfandels. Not to be confused with the movies. Bayali, Hartford in Sonoma, that was recommended. And then some really good cost savers were Cleaver Red Blend from Amador and Kirkland Old Vine Zinfandel Marlowe, the $6.99, 19.5% alcohol. Yeah. So it depends what you're drinking it for. Like I would definitely, if I were going camping or something, I would definitely Zin. And today was a good day because it was, at least on the east, it was cold and rainy. And so Zinfandel, because of the high alcohol, is warm. Okay, Zin stories. So Zinfandel is the only varietal that has its own day, its own conference, and it's called the ZinX or Zinfandel Experience in San Francisco.
ZinCon?
And last year, it's not ZinCon, and last year they actually poured samples from Scott Harvey's 1869 Zinfandel, which was originally planted 148 years ago in Amador County. Fact number one. Fact number two, Pets and Zins is what old timers called vineyard blends of Petit Syrah and Zinfandel. And Petit Syrah itself was pronounced Petit Syrah. Petit Syrah. So Pets and Zins is what old timers called the blend. Back in the day, Napa vineyards were planted to 70% Zinfandel, including their old craft vineyard, which was planted in '86 by a German winemaker. And now today, the plantings have dropped to like 2%. Okay, so that tells you a little bit about where Zin is heading or could be heading. So Lori says we also aged their oak in an American versus American, which would have different characteristics. The French is a little bit, I use the word earthy often, but it's almost like a peppery or earthy note that is more of the flavor. Remember, you get different flavors from different wood, different oak, depending on where it's grown. All right. And then last fact, Pinot Noir often gets tagged with a finicky label, even though several winemakers and growers pointed to Zinfandel. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But because oftentimes the bunches ripen unevenly, many old timers would make their pick decision by throwing a grape on the ground. And if it bounced, it wasn't ready. If it didn't bounce, it was ready. But winemakers recommend doing it by view. Oh, that's interesting, Anne. Thank you for that. Vegetarians and vegans with mushroom vegetarians on today. I did too, the Zins. I'm glad you all enjoyed the Zins. All right. And interesting, Brenda says, and I know it's 8 o'clock, Brenda says the biker. There is a Dafo wine that's all around motorcycles that makes a really nice Zin as well. So I recommend that. Thank you all so much for joining us. Your time is very valuable, and I appreciate that you took the time to spend with us tonight. Thank you for all your comments and questions. Feel free to reach out to me at any time. The 6-pack is for sale. The card game is for sale. But if you just like joining us and hanging out, that's fantastic too. As I mentioned, I'm happy to be your wine consultant if you have any questions about wine. I clearly love it and love talking about it. And so I'm here for you. Okay? Thank you very much. Have a great week and be safe.